Welcome to the Confident Retirement Podcast. Is doing the most important things alone a good idea? How comfy are you with your choices when it comes to life's biggest decisions? What is real peace of mind with financial confidence, and how can you get it? Kris Flammang and Mark Peachy are the founders of LPF Advisors in Sarasota, Florida. On the show, they bring together the best and brightest minds to share with you how to have a more confident financial picture. They empower listeners with simple, common sense and financial wisdom. And now, here are your hosts from LPF Advisors.
I want to welcome everyone to the Confident Retirement Podcast brought to you by LPF Advisors. I'm your host, as always, here, Kris Flammang, and today I have the honor of welcoming Daniel Henn to the show. His tax planning practice, based in Rockledge, Florida, is dedicated to advice, consulting, and planning designed to enrich the lives of those he serves. He's an author, an educator, a world traveler, and a soccer nut, and he's been called the most trusted tax professional in Central Florida. Daniel, thanks for being here and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kris. Appreciate it being on your show.
We're going to have fun. So I'm sure you have an interesting history. Take me through what led you to opening up your own practice.
Well, at this point, I have been doing this for 28 tax seasons. It's hard to believe I've been doing
Still alive.
But, ultimately, I worked for other people. I kind of say that I worked at the small firm, very small firm, worked my way up to a big, international CPA firm, and I worked my way down. And I eventually just got tired of the internal politics and everything of trying to make partner at a firm, that I just decided to go do my own thing. And that is now, I'm approaching the end of my 12th year here that I started that long ago. It's hard to believe.
Okay. Yeah, 12 years. So I'm curious if you could go back in time and tell that person 12 years ago, give them a piece of advice. What do you think that would be? Something you wish you knew then that you know now?
I think that for me, the biggest thing is understanding my true value because of my knowledge and experience. I mean, speaking from one tax practitioner to another kind of thing, because I do work with other tax pros, that the value, the knowledge, the experience, everything that I've done and built, to this point has a value. And we don't value that, and we don't price ourselves correctly in terms of what we could do. So, I still have clients that, while I've increased their fees over the years, they're still at a much lower rate than what I'm charging currently for a new client that comes in the door.
Yeah, and that's when you're first starting out, that's kind of a danger or something that you can experience where you want to bring clients on, you want to grow your practice, and so you can have a tendency to undervalue yourself, right? Yeah. Right. And it's hard to go back and correct that with people that you've been doing stuff for a long time. I run into that in our financial services practice too.
Right.
Okay. So what do you like best about your business right now?
I love helping people. I love helping them with the challenges. I hate when I like the normal challenges that people bring upon themselves, starting a new business or they're doing something and they add some new wrinkle, or they've been blessed by something, like I had one client that bought Amazon stock at $50 a share. Yeah. And when they came to me at the time, it was $800 a share, and now it's $3,200 a share. So, having that kind of they had like 800 shares of it or something like that at $50 a share. So seeing somebody like that, or somebody who, in dealing with real estate, where they've got this big gain that they're done with this particular property and they want to maybe look at owning something else, so we can look at, options of how we can, defer or not have to necessarily have the gains today. Yeah. Right. So looking at those types of challenges and, what's the best way to set up your business, or can we convert your business to do certain things, looking at those challenges. And I hate, when I made the comment earlier, I hate when there are other challenges that people are facing with, like with the IRS and the pandemic issues that they've been having, and staffing problems, I have the government and Congress to thank for my job. But at the same time, when they throw in all of these tax law changes that have happened so much just in the last 12 months or 18 months, that just make the job that much harder, and helping people with those. But again, it's part of my job and part of what I do to help people.
You have to keep up with all that stuff. I'll ask you about how you do that later. So what do you think is the biggest misconception that people have about what you do?
I think it's funny because I write some articles for various different things. One I write for my local newspaper called the Florida Today on a monthly basis. And I've been doing that for now over 9 years. But, I was writing an article recently that I think one of the misconceptions that I'd like for people to understand out there is that while we tax pros are busy at certain times of the year, the problem is that we as the tax pros, unfortunately, sometimes let people, so to speak, walk on us and take advantage of us. So just because there's a deadline in 3 weeks, that means I can give you all my stuff and you'll get it done. And most of the time they will do that and get that done. But that is at the great expense of the health and welfare of that tax professional. I have unfortunately heard of too many professionals that have passed away because of cancer, because of heart attacks, and a lot of that is brought on by the stress of the jobs. Yeah. I try not to let it bother me, and I take control of my practice a lot more. So you want to come work with me, you work within my rules, because I've developed a good reputation, in the industry, in my area. In fact, I had another financial advisor reach out to me recently that he said he wanted to partner with me. And I said, hey, I just want to let you know, I work with a few other financial advisors, and I don't know that, because I was thinking partner was wanting to get referrals back and forth. And I said, I just don't know that there's going to be a lot of that. And he said, no, I want to work with you because of your reputation and, in the area, in the industry. So, there is a cost to that. And you want to come play in my sandbox with me, then you have to play, by my rules. And so that's the thing that I think, to get people to understand that your emergency doesn't become my emergency is kind of the thing from my industry perspective.
Yeah. And there's certain times of the year, especially in your industry, where that's, the chances of that happening are really high because people are, bringing stuff in and like you said, in short timeframes and want to get it done. And with the commoditization of the CPA business, we'll talk about that a little bit later. That's another issue that you have to, doing more and more returns just to make more money isn't necessarily the solution to that. Right. Okay. So is there a difference between tax consulting and tax planning? And if there is, can you kind of explain that or define those two?
Yeah, well, again, I will say this is sort of in my opinion, tax planning, there's a few different aspects of tax planning. One, there's doing what I call the tax projection. It's the doing the calculations. It's usually what I say to most of my clients is that, hey, the last quarter of the year, for some people, it makes sense. We do it twice a year. So mid-year, near the end of the year. But in the last quarter, we go through and say, if your tax year, we pretend as if your tax year was going to end today. We take what we know to this point, we then extrapolate or estimate what it's going to be for the rest of the year and say, based on the new variables and stuff that changed this year, you sold your rental property, you sold your business, you bought, you started a new business. What are those items going to affect and look on your tax return? Because if I'm telling you in October, November, December, what you expect to pay come April, then I'm giving you some advance notice so that if that turns out to be 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, that you have some time to plan and prepare accordingly. Yeah. Now, the tax planning aspect of it comes in and says, okay, we still have some time. Okay, it might be October, November, December. It's not a lot of time, but there might still be some time in which we can make certain moves, get certain things started in place so that we can try to see if we can save you some money. Now, a lot of that is usually a deferral. So we're taking an expense today that, eventually is going to catch up with you somewhere down the line, whether it's, next year or in 15 or 20 years, that type of situation. But we're trying to take advantage of certain things, for example, like the most common ones are, buying a fixed asset that you can place in service by the end of the year. And again, I always tell people, don't let the tax tail wag the dog is what I call it. So don't, you've got to look at it from a financial perspective, a cash flow perspective, because you can't don't go buy something if you don't need it for another 2 years. If it's something you're going to need in the next 6 months and it makes sense that you can buy it, place it in service, start using it, then by all means do that and take advantage of saving the taxes today. Health insurance, retirement plans, those are things that are usually those are probably the big three of something to help people with, saving the taxes. And so that's sort of the tax planning. What type of entity should you be, or what type of entity are you today? And is there something that we could convert you to that might save you some money? So there's a lot of ideas and suggestions, and I subscribe to a lot of services and follow a lot of people who have a lot of ideas and suggestions along those lines. Now, from a tax consulting perspective, that to me is more of the one-off type things. So that's the type of thing that says, hey, I'm considering, putting in a retirement plan. What kind of retirement plan should I have? I have this big gain on my property. I wanted to buy a couple of other properties and sell this one, but I don't want to have to pay the taxes because I'm going to lose the cash for paying the taxes. So, what kind of options do I have in order to deal with that? Or, just the other one-off types of questions. Like I had a guy call me the other day and said, hey, I'm 72 and I want to look at converting my traditional to a Roth. And I'm like, not that can't be a good decision for him, but at 72, it's the whole point is the fact that he's paying the taxes, and does he have the time horizon to kind of recoup, the taxes that he's paying today? I get the point and get what he's trying to do and accomplish, but if he had come to me at 42, 52, 62, different type of thing. So that's the kind of tax consulting is what I would call, versus tax planning, where we're looking at the whole picture or what options and things that you could do to get to save some taxes.
Okay. So planning would be the entire situation of the person, where consulting probably is one sleeve of something that you would do with them.
That's how that's again, my opinion. That's how I would look at the phraseology of the two words.
All right. Well, that's what I want is your opinion, you being the expert. All right. So what are some unique challenges that medical practices and professionals face when it comes to taxation and planning? I think you've developed a little bit of a specialty in those areas. So elaborate on that.
Yeah, I deal with a narrow view of basically service-based businesses. So professionals, they can be, doctors, chiropractors, veterinarians, the financial advisors, attorneys, consultants, business coaches I work with, as well as real estate and IRS representation. And I'll cover a little bit. But the professionals, the challenges that they have is a lot of times there's big income. And for medical practices, the problem that many of them have is the fact of, I'm making this money, I'm making some good money, they're managing their practices. Unfortunately, a lot of the pressures that they have is, the insurance companies pay what they pay, they're going to pay how they pay, and they're going to pay when they pay. Then you got the challenges of Medicare for them. You've got, they have certain staffing that they need to do and have. Then you've got the whole medical transcriptions of stuff and the extra time that it takes involved in services that they use for those. So, so the challenges that they have from there is then what do they do with their profits? And most tax professional or medical professionals that I deal with, they're either, at least here in Florida, putting it in their house. So they live in $1 million houses because it's protected under law for, against malpractice type of issues, or in their retirement because that's also protected. So they don't generally venture out and do a lot of other things. Like they don't own a lot of real estate outside. They don't own, outside investment accounts. Those are the types of things where if they were really trying to grow their money, grow their value, that they could go and do those types of things. And having those types of investments do provide for a lot more tax advantages, because the capital gains, to this point are, typically at 15 or a 20% rate, versus the ordinary rates where many of them are, in the highest tax bracket. Real estate, has certain advantages in owning it and depending on what you, do with it. So you got the doctor whose wife is a real estate professional. I mean, that's like the best of both worlds type of stuff that we could do with planning. And then even if she's not, does she want to be, and, could, save some taxes? Obviously there's some rules that the spouse would have to meet, but those are some of the challenges that we have in dealing with those types of service professionals. Now, when it comes to, real estate, again, real estate is the real estate professional. So you're talking about a agent or a broker, property manager, but I also like to deal with the investor. Now, the investor obviously is a very broad definition. It's the couple who owns one or two rental houses to the guy who likes to flip properties. He likes to flip contracts, so there's multiple ways. It's probably, 36 ways that you can make money in a real estate aspect of that. So helping people with those challenges, how to handle the accounting and the recording of stuff makes it, a challenge for most people, so dealing with that particular aspect. And then the last piece that I deal with is what we call as IRS representation. So that's dealing with the exam / when most people know it as an audit, or the collection side. So, the audit is the document matching notice that you got. Hey, you didn't report that W-2, 1099, whatever you got. And, most common one that, you and I are probably most familiar with is the person who inherited that bank account that they've never had, or investment account that they've never had before. So they didn't know that they were supposed to have a 1099 and report the stock sales that got reported and the dividends and interest, and they will get that document matching notice a year from now. So the fortunate thing for most of those is that, they get what I call the heart attack notice, because the IRS knows that they sold $100,000 worth of stock. And so they'll get this notice that says, hey, you owe $10,000 or $15,000. And then when they bring it to me and we actually go through and add it to it, it turns out in many cases the IRS owes them money in the type of situation. So it's helping people with that. Then there's the people who actually get their number pulled and they, IRS wants to go through and look at every little thing on their tax return. And then on the collection side is unfortunately situations like the downturn in the economy we had back, in the 2006 through, the 8 time, and then it, lingers on for a few years. And then the recent pandemic where a lot of people lost jobs, downturns in restaurants and stuff. So they're now dealing with this cash crunch today when the tax bill from last year or a few years ago are coming due today. And so the finances aren't matching, the reality of what has happened historically. So helping those types of people deal with their particular situation. So do I get them into a payment plan? Can I put them into a spot where we can kind of set them off to the side for a while that the IRS doesn't bother them? Or there's a program called the Offer and Compromise where it's settling for less than what you owe. So, there are people who have paid, $100 toward, say, hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars. But they're very fact and circumstances situations. And while a lot more people qualify, but to actually meet the parameters of it is very difficult for a lot of people. So
you're helping to navigate through that.
Correct. Yeah. So, I have the knowledge and experience, and I teach other tax professionals specifically on the representation side. I'm the, if you will, train the trainer type of aspect of things. And I do teach other continuing education classes for other tax professionals on the other stuff that I do as well.
I saw on your website, you also have a college planning offering that you provide to clients. So can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure, Kris. Yeah, the college planning aspect of it is multiple. One, it starts with the tax return, because that's obviously what they want when you're trying to go through for the FAFSA stuff to submit, for what kind of benefits you're eligible for. The other aspect of it is trying to help the students and their parents to find what kind of monies that are available, and if you will, planning it in terms of shifting certain buckets to help them see what other monies might be available from the school based again on the parameters of their particular situation. Of course, it's another one of those, it's facts and circumstances based on what that student and their parents, make, earn. And if you will, sometimes there are some words that are sometimes difficult to use, but I think for lack of a better term right offhand is shifting of certain things that might give the student more money that they can get from the school, whether it's, through scholarships, through other programs that they, grants that they may have, or something that might, ultimately either funnel through the federal government. And then all the while factoring in people who they say they work with you and, they've set up the 529 plans, or they've, already done some state prepaid plan, and kind of working with how all of that fits into the big picture, but ultimately trying to help. The goal ultimately is to try and get that child to get out of college with the least amount of student debt, because the federal student loans program it's just mind-boggling. I know so many people that they're 56 years old still paying on their student loans just because of how much it was and what the payment plan and then the interest rate. So there's no greater feeling than to have your child finish college and not have any student loans. That it's done and paid for, because obviously you're benefiting from that college degree, but it's also keep costing you money, no different than buying a mortgage or any other loan when the interest keeps adding over time. So, who knows what people actually at the end of the day, I've never actually seen that math on what, it might have cost you, what is it, like $80,000 to go to a 4-year university to get that, but with the student loans you might pay a few $100,000 by the time you're done. Paying.
Do you have I'm curious, do you have a recent client experience, obviously not sharing any details, where you were keenly aware of the positive or negative impact of doing some planning ahead, or a lack thereof led to a good outcome or a bad one?
Nothing's right now coming right off the bat. My planning time is usually coming up here in the next few months, but it's I don't want to say it's a very common occurrence, but there's some big wins and there's some little wins. Obviously the planning aspect of it, there's one. This is more on the tax planning side than on the
that's fine.
There's one where real estate professional, it's amazing what this woman has been able to do, and obviously with the run up in the market, she's even been going gangbusters with that. But, giving her the suggestions of getting her to do a payroll, to get her daughter to do some payroll. Her daughter is, I don't know, I think her daughter's like 8 or 10 or something like that, and helping her with doing some things in the business, that getting her to save some money in terms of that. And that's it. As long as she does that and pays that, she'll save some money and get to the point where take advantage of the increase in the standard deduction. Her daughter's never going to have to pay taxes if she stays under that threshold. Now, she needs to legitimately be doing work and she needs to document that, but and we've told her that, but it's those types of things that help really save some money. Going from the most common one that I do is going from a Schedule C sole proprietor, single member LLC type, where they're not operating as an S Corp, partnership, C Corp, and just going from there to an S corporation. That usually at a minimum saves $5,000 again annually in terms of what it takes. And obviously the more money they make, the more that they're saving in that process.
Yeah.
Again, we try to do what we can to do the so to speak hand holding and helping them along what needs to be done and what needs to keep keep going along the way. But those are just kind of a couple of examples of things that I normally do.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit if we can, Daniel.
Okay.
What would you say is your biggest life accomplishment so far? This could be personally or professionally.
Well, my life accomplishment, I would actually have to say I married Wright. And
good job. Me too.
With that and the fact that, we produced two really good offspring. I have two daughters who are in their 20s now, both got married last year. So we had two pandemic weddings.
All right.
Not only that, but they chose Wright, and they've got, two guys two young men that are Christians. I say they got their heads screwed on right. They work and and help provide for the family. And I like, as much as I can say I'm their father, but their mother was really the one who provided. She homeschooled them. I provided some support and help with that. But my two girls are very strong, young, independent women. She's my middle daughter. That she was at one time, she's going to school full time in college and was working two part-time jobs on the side. So, my girls are not afraid of the hard work. They don't have to have the best in things. So I've taught them some good values in, that you don't have to have the best of things and keeping up with the Joneses. So, I would say ultimately that's our greatest accomplishment. And then the last piece is that we ended up adopting 4 years ago a little girl from our area. She's now almost 8 years old. And so we're, so to speak, starting over again, that my wife and I are dealing with her and the few challenges that we've, had with her. And we've worked through many of those, and we're homeschooling her as well and still working with her. But, that would honestly have to be my greatest accomplishment.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. We share, my wife and I have also adopted too. We have our kids, but we've also adopted. So I know the joy that comes from that. That's really great. Right. So outside of your practice, tell me something that you're really passionate about personally.
Stuff that I'm passionate about. Well, I love traveling. I love traveling and doing stuff with my wife. And obviously the pandemic kind of put a little bit of the kibosh on that. We really found that we like the international travel, but the benefit is that it's kind of forced us to do a little more US based traveling, which is good as well. So, we love to travel, and not only travel, but we like the outdoors type travel. We love to hike and go places. We just went this past summer in July. We went up to Mount Rushmore and drove up there.
Oh, nice.
Which was a real surreal experience when you see something like that. So we've seen, it's seen things like that. We've seen Stonehenge. We've seen the Parthenon in Athens. We've seen a lot of different things like that. We've been to LA and San Francisco, and we've been through we went last year in October. We went up through the Smoky Mountains. We love Stone Mountain, Georgia. So we love to travel and do that kind of stuff. Outside of that, I do enjoy woodworking. I haven't been able to do as much of it, lately. I'm not going to say I'm any special craftsman. I just enjoy doing it and some of the little, home projects that I do from that. But, outside of that, and again, the pandemic's kind of put the kibosh, but I have learned to like soccer. I'm a big sports fan. Football is my number one, then baseball and soccer. But soccer is kind of, crept up there. In fact, I started before the pandemic, an adult soccer league here that I had gotten going, and then we just kind of ended up stopping. I'd like to get that going. So I enjoy doing a lot of that stuff. And I love being outdoors, especially living here in Florida. Yeah. I've lived in Florida now 44 years, in my life. And, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah. So tell us about your book. You have two books, one that you had written previously, one that's very recent. So what inspired you to write those, and who is the book written for?
Well, the first book is the no holds barred, candid conversation about small business success in Florida. So that book was, I think it was published first in, I think it was 2015.
Okay.
And that book is predominantly designed for business owners to give them some basic concepts and try to help them, at least understand a little bit of the landscape in having a business, in today's world, and more specifically with some additional pieces on how to deal with business in Florida, which is actually, as compared to all of the other states in our union, Florida is one of the easier ones to deal with in terms of taxes and operating. In fact, the issue that most businesses, and I tell people, don't screw with the state of Florida, because when it comes to sales tax, if you have to deal with sales tax, that's a very, very important thing to them in how they raise the sales tax and get money from that. Now, my second book, and I happen to have a copy here on my desk. It's called The 41 Dangerous IRS Tax Red Flags and How to Avoid Them. So this goes along with the representation aspect of my practice. And it's in written form. It was based on a presentation that I gave to tax professionals on how to handle a lot of different issues on the tax returns. And so, but because I put it out there, I tried to make it consumer friendly so that the average person can go and look at it and say, hey, there's nothing you can really do about getting audited. There are certain things you can try to prevent getting notices.
Yeah.
But, if you're going to get audited, then you just need to be able to dot the I's and cross the T's in terms of providing documentation to provide certain information regarding your particular circumstances. And then it's all how you can make your arguments on why something's deductible or why something might not be taxable, in terms of the eyes of the IRS. Now, obviously, you're not going to always win, but the goal is first to avoid as many notices as possible. And then the second thing is to kind of have, if you're going to have issues, have enough issues that you're going to fly below the radar. Like, for example, let me give you one of the item, or a couple of items here. One, my very first one is called rounded numbers. And I can't tell you how many people will give me their items for their Schedule C, and they'll say it's, 2,500, 1,000 for this, 1,200 for this, 100 for this. And it's like, okay, that just kind of screams you didn't do your homework, you didn't put it together. And when, that is because every return is scored. And everything is scored based on certain parameters and certain things. And when the score gets to be high enough, it's going to end up on somebody's pile, and then they're going to actually look at it to see whether or not it really should be audited. So having something like that, having large numbers is the second one. Large numbers large numbers for income or deductions are big red flags. Mm-hmm. So, for example, it's not uncommon, it's not a wrong answer if somebody makes, a big, large charitable contributions. There are people out there that will do that. Now, under the normal rules, if you say of tithing is normally 10%, then the rules are, I think if you're under 10%, you probably should be okay. But, the average based on your income level might be, say, 7 or 8%. And if it's 7 or 8% and you're at 10, well, already you're a little bit higher. And then there's others who give a lot more. If you gave 20,000 and your AGI was 100, that's not a wrong answer. It's just, that is something that says, hey, look at me. And I have had clients get notices on just that particular area and say, hey, provide us your information, your details. And again, as long as you have the documentation to prove that you legitimately made all of those contributions, donations to qualified charities, then there shouldn't be any issues or problems. So those are some of the things, and obviously, just as an aside to put some of those myths to rest, extending your return doesn't automatically increase your chances for audit. Filing your return closer to October 15th doesn't increase your chances for audit. It's the things that are on your return, having a constant loss on your Schedule C, having losses on your partnerships and S corporations for a number of years. It becomes to the extent of, what are you doing? Or are they legitimately businesses? Are they hobbies? Or, what are you doing? So ultimately, that's the basic reason I wrote this book and put it out. In fact, it was just published in July of this year.
Awesome. Sounds very helpful. What do you see as the biggest opportunity right now in your business?
Well, the biggest opportunity is always, thanks again to Congress and helping people deal with the challenges that are presented to us. It always makes tax planning at the end of the year challenging when, we're looking at, Congress has passed this bill, or is it going to get all the way through? Is the president going to sign it? When are they going to sign it? And, what is the final bill going to look like? I hate to do I always say, here's what we need to do. We need to do the calculation based on what we know today. Now, we can add a couple of hypothetical scenarios and say, okay, based on a few of these things that you have, and these are a couple of the buttons that are in this new bill that are going to change. Like, for example, one of the things are on there is the increase in the long-term capital gains rate. At one time, it was talked about making that go to if your income was above a certain threshold, I believe it was supposed to be $1 million or $500,000, that it was going to go to 37%. Where the latest thing that I heard is that it might go to 25%. Now, most people don't remember, it wasn't that long ago that we had, long-term capital gains were at 28%. So again, hence one of those advantages of being, an investor in the market or investor in capital assets like real estate. So, the challenges that we have, they're always there, helping businesses, again, some consulting, and it's not so much tax consulting as more of a business consulting, that a lot of professionals like myself will also help people with understanding the cash flow relationships of businesses, the KPIs, the key product, the key performance indicators. What are the things that are benchmarks for their industries, and what would it take for them to get there? Helping them with things like internal controls to make sure that people aren't robbing them blind and stealing money, and because and that's what internal controls is really more designed to help them manage their inventory, manage the cash flow, the cash register, the banks, and the accounting aspect of things. So those are the challenges that we face and business owners face, because one of the biggest things that they could deal with is regulation, depending on the business and who they have to deal with. You got the federal government, you got the state government in certain areas. In certain states, you got city, county, local governments, and not to mention, say restaurants also have to deal with Department of Health. Medical professionals have also Department of Health related things that they have to deal with, continuing education. I mean, there's so many challenges out there. And the best thing that I can recommend a business professional is to seek a proper professional for the type of issue that you need. Unfortunately, as much as we want to find the one size fits all, there are not too many people out there that are like that. They come to you for the financial advice. I work with their financial advisor and help them to put the scenarios together to work in the picture. Should you contribute to a traditional Roth IRA, a retirement plan, a Roth component at your employer? Can you convert from your traditional to a Roth? Do the backdoor Roth, and doing those types of planning things. That's where you need to have that stable of people: a good banker, a good estate planning attorney, a good business attorney, maybe even a good real estate attorney, a good financial advisor, a good tax professional, even a business coach or somebody else might be in your in your niche that's going to help you with growing your business and helping you to see the things that you want to do. I mean, kind of coming back to what you asked me, earlier, about, challenges, or what I like about my business is in helping other people, but for me to do what I need to do, I need to really have staff. I need to outsource certain things. I'm a business no different than any others. And so that's what I would advise, a business owner to look at outsourcing, because your time is more valuable in doing the things that you know how to do. You still need to manage and oversee those people, but you need to work with the professionals that can give you the proper advice, because if you don't have the expertise, the knowledge, yes, while I understand you're trying to save a buck, and it's like I don't fault people for doing their own tax returns and trying to save a buck, but you don't know what you don't know. And from a tax return perspective, I said, it's garbage in, garbage out. So I can't tell you how many personal individual returns I've seen done in a TurboTax or an H&R Block online, where they've done it themselves, and they've either saved themselves money that they shouldn't have, or they cost themselves money because they didn't take certain deductions or credits that they were entitled to. So hopefully that kind of answers your question there.
So how, commoditization is a big thing in the CPA industry, even in the investment world. So how have you kind of dealt with that in your practice or your business?
Well, commoditization is just the fact that everybody looks at, and I can't say that I fault it, because a tax return, I call it the necessary evil. That's what's brought about the commoditization. Now, what makes it not really a commodity is the fact that the person that you're working with, or the team that you're working with. So when you work with me, you're not just working with me, you're working with me and my staff in my office. And so what makes it a commodity, and in most cases, the tax return is the tax return. But you've probably heard those stories where some news outlet went and took this stack of information, and then they took it to 19 different tax professionals, and they got 21 different answers, and it's one of those things that, I'm never going to profess to know it all. There's just way too much to know it all. And I don't have an idyllic memory where I remember everything that I read, from 30 years ago. So, I'm only as good as my knowledge and experience, and so is the next tax professional. But having somebody like me, like I said, in my history, I worked my way up to an international firm, and I learned a lot of stuff on my way up. And then I worked my way down to a, large local firm, down to having my own small firm, that I still learn things on the way down. And I continually go after continuing education. I'm required as a CPA in Florida to have 80 hours of continuing education in a 2-year cycle. I probably have at least double that, and I don't even keep track of some of that, just because I get way more than I need to in that time frame. But you're as good as the information that of the person that you're working with, and so the commodity is what you make of it. And to me, it becomes more of a commodity when people are always charging the small rates, and they're charging the same as the H&R Blocks. And to work with me, it's not cheap. I'm probably a little more than double what H&R Block charges. And so I had a new prospect that came to me not that long ago. Actually, a guy of very a good means of income and assets, and he interviewed me, talked with me, we did a Zoom call, and then he interviewed a couple of more people, and he came back to me and he said, "Hey, Dan, I kind of like to work with you, but the average rate of the other people was like $475, and I was still a good bit more than that." And he wanted to, he was kind of saying it without exactly saying it, but he wanted me to come down in my price. And I said, look, I'm not looking to work with everybody. I'm looking to work with quality clients. I want to work with people who are, who want to work with me, who I want to work with, and then help them in their financial lives and the tax aspect of that to help them improve, their lives, keep money in their pocket. And I don't have to work with everybody, and I didn't budge on my price. So at the end of the day, he still chose me. And so that's how you end up making, you kind of made a comment earlier that I said it, that I was thinking in my head, my phrase is, it's about working smarter, not harder. It's not about taking everybody that walks in the door and, here's my price. And if you want to work with me, this is what it costs. And, or I like to say it's an investment in me. It's an investment in my firm for you to make for that price. Now, do I get people who, rant and rave on the phone to my staff and say, you can't charge that? Nobody's going to pay that. And it's like, okay, I beg to differ, and that's fine. We're just obviously not the right fit for you. So
sure.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, and have a nice day.
Yeah. And there are other professionals that are competent that would be a better fit.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So if that's a good segue. So if people want to learn more about you or contact you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Well, the best way is typically through my website, cparockledge.com.
Okay.
Rockledge is the city that my firm and I live in here in Brevard County. We're on the east coast of Florida and the Space Coast area for those people that are more familiar with that. I love seeing the rocket launches from here, especially that Inspiration 4 that went up last week. That was pretty cool with a night launch like that from here. But so CPA Rockledge, you can find me and my firm on Facebook as well. I'm also available in LinkedIn. Dan Henn CPA is how I go by, although legally I'm Daniel, so I go by Dan Henn CPA. But those are typically the best ways to get it. You'll find it on Google if you do a Google search and contact my office. And if somebody wants to, if the preliminary information that comes in that they're a good fit, then we'll look at scheduling an initial consultation phone call or Zoom. Right now, we're still not doing anything live face-to-face. We can go from there.
Okay. All right. Last question. This is off the cuff here, Dan. Will the U.S. men's national team qualify for the World Cup this time around? Yes or no?
I want to say yes. It's really disappointing to watch a World Cup when the U.S. team, when you don't have really a team in dog in a fight kind of thing.
Right.
And being a big Bucks fan, that was a big thing for me this past year. But I think that they really have a good chance. I haven't seen if they had any games recently. I know that it's one of those where they have to probably win a lot more than they need to draw or lose. And, it's like anywhere, in the world, we're in a tough bracket. There are some really good teams out there, and one day our system, I still don't know that we still have the best of feeder systems and we coach and train a lot differently than the rest of the world does. But we have a shot. I have confidence that they can do it this year.
All right. So you're cautiously optimistic.
Yes, cautiously optimistic. That would be
okay. We'll go with that. Okay, Dan. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to be here with me today. It's been a true pleasure to interview you. Folks, we've been here with Daniel Henn, CPA. And thank you all for tuning in to the Confident Retirement Podcast brought to you by LPF Advisors, where we raise the retirement confidence of everyday people to another level, one show at a time. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you and hear you next time. Take care.
You've been listening to the Confident Retirement Podcast with Kris and Mark from LPF Advisors. For more information on them and retiring confidently, please visit lpfadvisors.com. If your ears are pleased and your mind is now at ease, do share the program with your friends and subscribe wherever podcasts are found.